Anime, like any other medium, is often used to explore various concepts, topics, and genres. This includes horror, which is handled in various ways in anime films and TV shows. While some of these gruesome and fantastical works similar to slasher movies, others are much more introspective and psychological. This allows their narratives to blur the lines between delusions and reality, with some also doing the same for their particular genre. One great example of this is Perfect Blue, which isn't the first thing that some might envision when it comes to horror movies. Directed by Satoshi Kon, it deals with several of the themes present in most of his acclaimed movies. The result is a movie that follows a celebrity whose own faltering psychosis has harrowing implications for her maddening life. Though there might not be any supernatural elements or other concepts more common in true horror cinema, Perfect Blue is even scarier because of this. Released in 1997, Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue was an anime film based on the novel of the same name by Yoshikazu Takuichi. The protagonist is Mima Kurago, a member of a popular idol singing group who leaves in order to embark on an acting career. This move proves to be controversial among her fandom, and it's also not quite the immediate slam dunk that she expects. It's only after some prodding from her manager that she's able to score a larger role in a TV series, though it also involves shooting a psychologically traumatizing scene. All the while, she also has to deal with her growing fears surrounding an online fan account by a person who may be stalking her. This series of unexpectedly dark situations cause her to suffer psychologically to the point where she begins to question reality. Things only get worse when the truth behind her supposed stalker is revealed. This involves an even deeper web of mental anguish and blurring of a fact and fiction, with the movie's ending even adding to this. These themes are also present in Satoshi Kon's Millennium Actress and Paprika, with the former also dealing with the film industry. Due to the question of reality and fantasy, it's hard to discern whether or not Mima is involved in the grievous murders seen in the movie. This is the most obvious horror element in the anime movie, but what makes Perfect Blue truly scary is how all too real its fear factor really is. There are no sort of supernatural and paranormal aspects in Perfect Blue, which separates it from a lot of horror movies. This means that immortal slasher killers, ghosts, and other concepts are completely missing. But the dark anime film is no less terrifying. One of the themes it plays with is celebrity and idol culture, which is especially relevant in Japan. There, teen pop idols and idol groups are a common part of popular culture, and it can be taken to some unfathomable extremes. There have been various cases of stalkers and similar threats to real-life idols, and these can be triggered from events such as celebrity leaving a musical group or pursuing some other sort of change in career. Even anime voice actors have stalkers, making their lives more difficult or even endangered. Thus, Mima's fears concerning her own stalker are far from something stuck in the realms of fiction. This has actually been more relevant than ever due to the presence of social media. Fans can now follow their favorite celebrities and see a closer glimpse into their lives, which was not something nearly as easy as time when Perfect Blue was released. The type of stalking seen in the film is now easier than ever, which only makes the danger even more palpable, regardless of how much a celebrity or idol someone may be. Also feeding to celebrity aspect is Mima's own concerns, what is and what isn't reality. Though today's celebrities might discuss matters of mental health more openly, this wasn't the case for Japanese idols in the late 1990s. Even in more westernized societies, this still might be seen in a particular light, especially if it involved the level of dissociation seen in Perfect Blue. Another harsh smack of reality is the level of pressure put on celebrities in various cultures, namely female entertainers. Mima is almost meant to be reverently grateful for securing an acting role, larger than the one she had, despite it involving a rape scene. This scene has a major impact on her psyche, and it adds to her questioning if she made the right decision in her career or not. It's a question of what success truly is in the entertainment industry, which can many times be exceedingly cutthroat, and the effect that it has on those involved. When juxtaposed with the grisly murders and other psychological elements, such as Mima pondering which version of herself is the real one, it certainly gives off a horror vibe. Thus, the biggest question is whether or not Satoshi Kon's film really counts as a horror movie. In the eyes of some audiences, Perfect Blue isn't necessarily an example of horror. The lack of supernatural or paranormal elements is enough to disqualify it in the eyes of some, but the dispute goes deeper than that. There's also the fact that though Mima has a sort of downward mental spiral, there's nothing overtly scary in the traditional sense. Many viewers might instead classify the film as psychological thriller, which was the label commonly associated with the works of Alfred Hitchcock. At the same time, many of his movies were also considered horror movies, and in modern conjecture, the term psychological horror is more commonly used. This is also associated with the pseudo-genre of elevated horror, which looks at concepts from somewhat more human level, while being introspective and focusing less on the gratuitous shock value of a situation. This means The Perfect Blue would be a psychological horror anime, if it is truly horror. The ranking and inclusion of horror anime has been up for debate in recent years, with fans trying to decipher whether works such as Chainsaw Man belong on the list. After all, despite its sometimes gruesome content, it's still considered a manga and anime anime geared toward young boys. Likewise, it's never particularly scary or even psychologically taxing, having only its gore and supernatural aspects to fall back on in terms of a horror genre placement. If anything, Perfect Blue has much more reason to be considered a horror anime in comparison. The same can be said for the brutal Berserk manga and anime, which also has a genre contested among fans. These works give the impression that it's a certain combination of elements that plainly define an anime as horror, and while all aren't required, Perfect Blue is an example of a movie that comes up short in the classification. Despite its arguably not being a true horror piece, Perfect Blue is no less harrowing and discerning to watch. Once again, the reality behind the fictional story makes it far more visceral than if it featured vampires, goblins, ghosts, and demons. This means that it could easily happen to anyone watching the movie, with the horror based in its status as a cautionary tale. Ultimately, this kind of moral play is the heart of all true horror, regardless of whether they're officially ranked as horror anime or not. If anything, it's the most intimate form of the genre, as it sends a deep chill not up the spine but into the mind.